I'm Jill, and I am the marketing and communication specialist for Tech Parks Arizona, and I also handle UACI's accounts. So I get to do a lot with social media with these companies and kind of filter through all their LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And we're doing some stuff with YouTube too. So with that, they asked me to come in today and kind of share some best practices within social media marketing and some ideas that will hopefully spark some inspiration for your own pages. So I'm going to start off by saying social media has progressed a lot since it first started. It's not just about status updates and friend requests anymore. Like, you can really engage with audiences and build those experiences and cultivate connections with people. So good strategy and good content flow will kind of help engage your audiences and make them stick around and be more interested in your business and your products and things like that. And social media is something that you can absolutely have fun with. I know kind of in a business setting, we want everything to be very business oriented and strict and just very professional. And there is a way to have that good balance between professional and whimsical and just kind of, again, engaging with your audience and having those fun moments with them, especially through social media. So some general do's and don'ts that I always like to give people when posting on social media is that you should make content that you would be interested in seeing on your page. If you wouldn't find it interesting, your audience probably won't. Kind of think of it as you are part of your own audience. So making content that you'd want to see, kind of mimicking content that you see that you enjoy, is probably a good way to kind of start things off and kind of get a feel for what your audience likes. You can actively follow industry hashtags and popular accounts within the industry you work in. And you can find the platforms that they're most popular on. Some are more popular on LinkedIn, some will be more popular on Instagram. And you can post in a mimicking way of what they're doing while putting your own spin on it. Again, kind of as you're getting your feet wet and finding your own voice within social media, that's a really good starting point, is to find what others are doing well and kind of go off of that. Social media is at its core social, so finding other people who are part of the industry, maybe you see them at events, maybe you're meeting up for a lunch, including other people in your content is always a good idea. And if you tag them, it will also reach their audiences. So that's a good way to kind of get both of those in a way to engage more with audiences. You can
Jill, there was a specific question on hashtags. Just how do they work? How do you create one, and how does it get picked?
Oh, absolutely. So hashtags are always going to be the little pound sign, the shift 3 on your keyboard. That's how you generate a hashtag through social media. Their algorithms will automatically kind of turn it into one. So you can create your own. I'll actually talk about that a little bit more, because that's a very good part of like engaging your own brand, is to create your own hashtags. But it's good to, again, reference popular accounts and popular groups within your industry and go off of their hashtags. So if you're in a biotech industry, you can keep it simple and just tag hashtag biotech. For UACI, we'll do a lot of hashtag startups, hashtag innovation, those kind of things that will help reach that audience, because when people are interested in those topics, the algorithms will push them towards those topics. So Sonia put some very good examples in. So hashtag engineering, hashtag small business, those are all absolutely great examples for reaching a very target audience that can remain broad at the same time. But you're taking out the food industry, you're taking out just like party industry, and you're kind of focusing it towards science, technology, innovation by using those hashtags. And then lastly, you definitely want to triple check your spelling and grammar. In some cases, social media will be people's first experience with your brand. So in having correct grammar, correct spelling, and all of that stuff, you're kind of just setting yourself up for you're on the right track, you're on the right foot. If you have correct spelling and correct grammar, it makes you seem professional, like you know what you're talking about. There we go. And then we'll just kind of go into some basics with the types of content that you might see on social media. And the first one is pictures. This is kind of your standard. If you're posting on Instagram, it does require you to have some kind of visual element, which typically would be a picture, but you could also do a video, which we'll get into more later. Some basics in photography. I personally really like the rule of thirds, which is the picture that you can see right here with the dog in it, which is when you break your photo into a grid of 3x3 and you put your focal point at any one of the intersections. So in this picture, you see the dog is the focal point. He's right here at the top right intersection of those lines. This can help create a symmetry or an asymmetry rather when you focus it on one of those intersecting points, but it can help you line up a shot for a symmetrical shot as well by not focusing on the intersecting points, but just rather this middle column. That will give you a symmetrical post, which can be very aesthetically pleasing. Another good tip for pictures is that color will capture an audience's attention. People really like seeing color. When there's more color, it draws people in, especially on social media platforms. Color just goes really, really far. One of my favorite statistics that I've picked up on over the years is that blue and green will statistically do better on social media platforms. If the main color in your post is blue or green, people will really like that, kind of because it like symbolizes nature, which is another thing that people really like to see on social media. So when you can incorporate blue or green, it's always a good go, but I've seen a lot of other posts do really, really well without including those colors. People really like to see, I see a question, black and white and grayscale. Black and white and grayscale do go really far. I feel like there is an audience for that. And it kind of plays into aesthetics, what you want your aesthetic to be, what you want your brand aesthetic to be. So you can absolutely play into black and white. That's going to kind of focus you into an audience that enjoys that kind of content, which could be your audience. So absolutely, with social media, it's kind of a play around. You have to find your audience. You have to figure out what they like to see on social media and shift into them. So that is absolutely something you can play around with, is black and white. I would recommend not playing too much with changing aesthetics too frequently, because that can just become distracting and confusing. So play around with black and white, give it a good time to figure out if that's what you like, if that's what your audience likes. And if it's working, great, keep running with it. But if that doesn't work so much, then you can kind of steer clear of it and move into more color type pictures. And then back to going with pictures, natural light is always a very flattering light for most people. And it kind of brings a nice warmth to pictures as well compared to office lights and things like that. So when you can take outside shots, even if it means like taking your product outside and kind of holding it up to the sun and things like that, it just brings a natural warmth and energy to your pictures that goes pretty far within social media. And then when you have the ability, you can capture aspects of your process. You're working hard on your business. I would think you'd want to show that off. I think your audiences would probably really like to see kind of what you're going through as well. Kind of those, not necessarily step-by-step, but progress and things like that always goes well on social media. People like to see where you're started, where you're headed, how you've ended up, things like that. Those do pretty well. So I have some pictures here. Most of these are from conferences, just because a lot of conference type photos encapsulate these ideas very well. So something that's always good to do is to take memorable and engaged photos. You can see that these speakers are very engaged speakers. They're presenting to an audience, they're putting on a show. There's a sense of motion here, even though they're just pictures. And that's something that increases that engagement and memorability within your pictures, is if there's a sense of motion without it being blurry, I will add, because blurriness can, if it's not completely intentional, can be a little distracting. Be mindful of bystanders in your picture, like if you're at conferences or if you're kind of taking a picture in a crowded area, be mindful of who's in the back of your picture because they're making a weird face or it's not very flattering for them. That could stand out to somebody. Group photos also go very, very far, whether it's kind of selfie style or if you're taking candid pictures. People like seeing people. So when you include people in your process, kind of make it human, include groups, that will go pretty far. When you're taking pictures of merchandise or products, it's, again, people like to see people. So I always tell people lean towards having a human in your shot. So like with the mug one here, you can see, you don't know who the person is, but there's a human element added to that. And it's just a little bit more engaging and interesting to people than something just being laid on a table, unless you have like the really good lighting and you're really going for a product shot. The simple, easy thing to do is to have somebody in your picture with your product. Some good things with photography is that it's easy to capture different angles and layouts and things like that. So I think this picture does a really good job of kind of laying out all the different angles that you can take with a picture and just the differences that those things have. Like, are you getting more detail? Are you getting an intricate shot? Are you kind of changing it up to be a more futuristic shot? It can change the feeling of your picture very quickly just by changing the angle of your camera. So a couple more do's and don'ts. Take pictures with different people, show your network, show your connections, show your growth. You can leave space around a subject because that's going to create some easy formatting and cropping uses later. As you edit pictures, it's always just good to have that room around because different profiles require different sizes for the best formatting. Instagram likes to be in squares, LinkedIn likes landscape type photos. So if you always have space around your subject, you never have to worry about cropping something to the point that it looks unrecognizable. If you keep your pictures in focus, that's my personal preference. I know that there is some intentional blurring that happens. Like if you put portrait mode on your phone, it's going to blur out everything behind your subject. So when you do have blurriness, just make sure it's intentional. If it kind of looks like your phone is falling over as you're taking a picture, it's just not as clean and it doesn't look as professional and like you know what you're doing with your photos. Another do is to find bright colors and capitalize on them. I know we talked a little bit about the black and white situation, but bright colors do kind of have a place in social media right now. The trends absolutely can change and we could go into like a black and white phase of social media. But right now the trend does seem to be colors. So finding murals and buildings with really cool artwork on them, bright centerpieces on tables, that is going to capture an audience's attention when you have just a spark of bright color in your picture. And then again, use natural lighting when possible. That's going to help bring a warmth to your pictures. These are a couple pictures from South by Southwest a few years ago. Actually, yes, 2019. That I think do a good job of kind of capitalizing on everything that we've talked about. So down here in the bottom left, you see this pop of orange in a very like black and white picture beyond that. You have some blues and things like that. So it's not quite a black and white picture, but the orange stands out. The yellow sign in the back stands out. You have this blurriness around her, but your subject is in focus. Same with the microphone down here. It's in focus while the background is blurred out. So I think these are some really good ones that kind of encapsulate the things that we've talked about with photography. Another option for content is to do videos or a vlogging type situation where you can take a bunch of short clips and kind of put them together, talk about your process, talk about how you're going through things with your business. The video content should always be captured in a landscape format because have you all ever seen like on the news, they'll show a video and there's the black bars on the side? That's because someone had taken the video in portrait mode. And so it was vertical rather than horizontal, and it didn't cover up the whole screen. So you'll save yourself a lot of time and a lot of hassle if you just film in landscape mode right off the bat, because it goes down to editing. How easy is it to fit to different formats? Summary videos are compiling short clips, photos, interviews, testimonials, and getting some audio in there. And it'll make a single short video that encapsulates an experience that you've had. So I found this video on TikTok that I think does a great job of explaining. Did it switch over to Chrome? Can we see?
And I had a dream that someday I would just fly away. And I always knew I couldn't stay. So I had a dream that I just fly away. I've been on my own for a minute. Is it only me out there? Searching for the place to begin it. Is it me? Is it you? Is it fear? Standing on the line I was given. People stare and ask me why I'm here. No one seems to think that I fit in. But I don't wanna be like them. No, 'cause I don't wanna be like them. 'Cause I know that I had a dream that someday I would just fly.
So that was an example of that kind of vlogging type situation. So they didn't include any of their own personal voiceover. They just included music over the video, but they included text that kind of went through the process of how they were traveling the world and things like that. You have those very aesthetic, pleasing pictures and videos that you're viewing that just kind of showcase their whole journey, and in a fun way that was, I feel, is pretty relatively easy to watch. So some do's and don'ts with videos. I promise this is shorter than the photo section. Film if there's motion to capture, but if nothing is moving, it probably shouldn't be a video. It's difficult to watch something that's just kind of static. So it would make a better photo if it is static. With the video that we just watched, you saw even in the more still life type shots, there were waterfalls running, or there were birds kind of like in the distance flying by. And those little small nuances still would make a good video, but if someone's just kind of like staring at you, that doesn't make a very good video. The next thing is to keep steady hands or prop your phone up on a flat surface. Nobody wants to watch that like kind of shaky, blurry video. I'm very bad about this. I have very unsteady hands. So you can purchase a gimbal, which is something that you can just slide your phone into. But if you don't want to spend the money on that, I always suggest propping your phone up on something. So you can either be holding your phone, and if you put your arms kind of resting on the back of a chair, that will add some stability to your shot. Or you can kind of set it up on a water bottle or things like that. There's lots of options to keep the most steady shot that you possibly can. Take video clips that are 5 seconds or longer. If they're shorter than that, it could seem like they are cut out, and then your audience feels like they're missing something. To that same point, you need to move slowly as you're taking videos, especially if you're making sweeping motions. Because if you move too quickly, if you do kind of a NASCAR zoom over something, it feels like your audience is missing something. They'll feel left out of whatever the big moment was. You can always swap a photo opportunity for a video opportunity by taking a sweeping landscape video like we saw in the previous video rather than a panorama. Or you can take a group selfie video where everyone's cheering and really happy or something like that rather than just the picture itself. It kind of brings in some of that energy from the experience that you're having, and your audience might really like to feel like they're a part of that. You can always capture quotes and interviews for sound bites too. I highly recommend that. You can always put music over things, but it adds a more personal experience to things if you can kind of incorporate audio in a storytelling sense through your words. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is incorporating a brand aesthetic onto your social media profiles. I apologize, I know it is lunch. I have a couple food things going on here. So this is Crumble Cookie's Instagram account. you can very clearly tell in looking at their social media profile who their brand is. They have this iconic pink that they use across their posts. And, they have their cookies, their Instagram story highlights line up very well. And there's a general theme amongst their brand, which is their brand aesthetic. So when you're looking to kind of fill out your aesthetic, you need to ask yourself, am I posting stuff that is similar enough to each other that if an audience looked at this and they saw me on their feed, would they know who I am without having to look at my at? A good way to start is to incorporate your brand colors and things from your logo. If you kind of have like a very swoopy font to your logo, you can include that swoopy font in your posts. If you have like very specific colors that you love to use in your logo, you can use those in your posts and kind of create that general theme. You can include signature design elements and put on your posts. At Tech Parks, we're kind of in the process of incorporating more of these geometric flowing lines across our posts. And that kind of brings people back to tie in what one thing is compared to another thing, but how it's all Tech Parks. And then, like we were talking about earlier, you can make your own hashtags and incorporate them on every post. So Tech Parks has hashtag technology's best address. So we use that a lot within our promotional material. With different brands, use your brand name for a hashtag. If you can be more witty with it, absolutely do that. Kind of make a joke out of it, have a play on words. That's always a good idea. But the simple basic one is to use a hashtag that is your brand name, especially if it's something extremely unique to your brand. The next thing is that you can engage with your audience, and you should be engaging with your audience. Kind of open up that door. They'll want to engage with you if you try to engage with them first. So one of the best ways that I suggest doing this is to gamify your content, which is what it sounds like. It means to make a game out of it. If you think back to like grade school, do you remember kind of playing games with the lecture material rather than just sitting there and reading about it or your teacher talking at you? You wanted to participate in the class more as you could play a game with it. So you can use built-in elements on apps. Instagram has a really good kind of gamification feature. They have their stories, which you can do polls on, you can do fill in the blanks, incorporating music, all kinds of stuff on Instagram stories. Twitter does a good job. They have polls as well. But if you're on a program that you either don't like their built-in elements or they're not working that well for you, you can always use your graphics to play games with your audience. So you can do search and finds, word searches, you can do a digital scavenger hunt. There's topics like this or that. So you have the whole column that's this or a whole column that's that. You can make bingo boards. There's lots of options to play with graphics. And then you can always keep things very simple if you don't want to use a graphic and just ask some trivia questions and get people to engage by commenting on your posts. So these are a couple of my favorites. We'll start here with this one. M&M's does a really, really great job with gamification. So if you want to learn some more about that, you can absolutely look at their Instagram. With this one, very clearly it's a word search. They made it in the shape of an M&M, which I think is pretty cute. So like right off the bat, what words are you all seeing within this graphic? This was the whole point of their social media campaign. I think the caption was, whatever you see first is the flavor you need today. Is anyone seeing any words pop up in the graphic? M. Okay, we got yeah, the big white M, right? Because it looks like the little candy itself.
I see peanut butter.
Peanut butter, yep, there is peanut butter. See right there, peanut butter. The first one I noticed was fudge brownie down the side of the M. Candy corn, yep, absolutely. So this engagement that we're getting here is exactly what M&M's was doing with this post. Pumpkin, yeah. Actually, I'll do you one better. It's pumpkin pie right at the top, which is kind of fun. So this engagement is the exact same engagement that M&M's was getting in their comment section on their Instagram. And with that engagement, the algorithm boosted their posts. They were like, oh, people like this. Well, maybe other people will like it too. So they kind of kept pushing that. Another one that M&M's did that I thought was just fantastic was this collaboration between the Skittles brand. So they say something's off, can you help us figure it out? And then they did a good job of tagging Skittles kind of like hidden within their hashtags, so that you knew, okay, maybe I'm supposed to look for something with Skittles. I'll give you all a second. Does anybody know kind of what's going on here with this post? I won't take up too much of your time with it, but give everybody a chance. So this is a good example of the search and find. You have this little yellow Skittle right down here in the bottom corner. And it makes people kind of like spend time. Like if you're scrolling on your Instagram, you'd be intrigued by these rows and rows and rows of M&Ms and kind of like, oh, what's going on here? And the more time people will spend on your content, the more likely they are to like it or comment on it, kind of have a good time with it. You can see here, this has over 10,000 likes. Now, partially that is because M&M's is such a big brand, but the algorithm has boosted their post as well. So that because they keep getting that engagement. Another example, which I'll go over, this one you can tell didn't do quite as well, but it's still a very good example. So this is Microsoft's LinkedIn account, and they called it the Wingding Decoders, which is, you know, everybody knows the Wingdings font and how it's really just kind of nonsense. The problem that comes from the Wingding Decoders is that it's not something that can easily be translated on social media. There was nothing here. It's not like people could type Wingdings in on their phone. There's a lot of kind of actual decoding that takes a lot of time outside of the app to participate in. So what I would suggest in place of this that a lot of people do and enjoy is to kind of do an emojis decoder. So the U of A has the bear and the down arrow. That counts as like an emoji decoding, even though it's so popular brand at this point that everyone knows it's bear down. So there's some good examples of like, if you take the candy emoji and you put a corn emoji next to it, that would be candy corn. So you can kind of create these little riddles that people can decode, and it will engage that audience to want to participate and tell you what they think your code is. So those ones are always fun and will gain you some more comments. And then here's a good example of using a Twitter poll and a built-in element. So Cisco used this was actually a post from yesterday. When I put this link in, it was still a live poll, but now unfortunately it has closed, but it's very cool because we can see the results. So they used this poll within their Twitter feed, and the topic isn't necessarily gamey, but you can see how much increased interaction. They have 38 votes on this because people like to push the buttons, you know. You see something that you can engage with, you probably will want to. So those are some really fun examples of gamification within your social media. Did we have any questions about gamification? I know that went kind of quickly, but I can move on if we're all good. Okay. The next thing to do is to build time into your schedule for social media. Don't make it an afterthought, because you can kind of tell, like, as you're scrolling through stuff, it's like, oh, that probably could have been polished a little bit more and things like that. So set aside time for social media. Maybe even just starting out, it's just once a month. You can start out by having a day that you devote to taking some product pictures, sitting in Canva, making a word search, things like that, so that you have content lined up, ready to go. And you can always take advantage of social media opportunities as they pop up in your lives. So conferences, business lunches, if you've gotten put up for a grant, you're a finalist for an award, things like that. Those are great things to share on social media that you might not know right away. And then build a calendar to outline kind of when you're going to post, what you're going to post, different engagement that you can have with your audience so that you're constantly and consistently giving them content to engage with. Because if you go static for a while, it's hard to build that reputation back up. And the next thing we'll talk about is establishing a personal brand versus your company brand. So your personal brand is for you. That is where you can post about your friends, your family, travels that you're taking, personal missions, and just all of those kind of things. But you can also talk about your business and innovations there as you choose. But your company brand should be all about your business. There shouldn't be baby pictures on there or, you know, those kind of things. You want it to be focused on your business. So you can have fun with social media there, but it doesn't necessarily need to tie into your personal life. You can put product photos there, you can put updates, all those kind of things, but you don't need to tie what's going on in your life necessarily, because as your business grows, you'll probably not want your public image attached to that nearly as frequently. So it's better to kind of reshare those things onto your personal account to gain that traction, but keep your business separate from your personal life on the business page. So the best way to do this is to have those separate accounts. It's only one more password that you need to remember. You can absolutely have multiple social media accounts. There's no reason not to. And it's, like I said earlier, it's easy to repost those aspects from your business account onto your personal account so that you can talk about your innovations with your friends and your family. You absolutely should. You just don't need to keep your personal brand always attached to your company brand. Having that distinct separation between you and your business kind of creates an anonymity to your posting, and it gives you an online presence that seems bigger. And as your team expands and your marketing and communication people kind of join your team, you don't want them in on your personal accounts. So it's better just get ahead of the ball and have an account that is separate for your business, and you don't have to like let people into your personal accounts as you kind of expand things like that. Okay, key takeaways from today. I want to thank you all so much for your time. But visual content is king. Absolutely make videos, make photos. That visual content is going to hold an audience's attention. Use your hashtags, make your own, find industry hashtags, find brand hashtags. This is going to help that search engine optimization and impressions. It's going to boost your algorithm. Build a brand and image aesthetic. Start with elements in your logo, separate your personal brand from your company brand, and gamify your content to increase your engagement. Thank you all very much for your time today. If you have any other questions, I know we're going to have a quick Q&A here at the end, but if you all ever need anything, please feel free to reach me.